On day 7, we'll finish looking around the old city of Jerusalem. We'll go up on top of the Temple Mount, and then we'll go over to the Sisters of Zion Convent and see the Lysistratus. We'll walk along the Via Delorosa until we get to the Church of the Holy Sepulcher. We'll look around there some at the tomb and at the Golgotha, and then we'll walk over to the Jaffa Gate. After leaving the Jaffa Gate, we'll get on the bus and we'll head east out into the wilderness of Judea, the same way that we drove into the city. So we'll be seeing the same Bedouin camps, same rock formations and other things while we're out there. We're headed to Jericho. While at Jericho, we're going to eat there and we're going to do a little shopping there. After shopping, we'll head over to the Mount of Temptation and look at it and ride the camel some. Then we'll head back across Jericho and over to Qumran, where we'll look at it for a little bit before heading back to Jerusalem for the night. This video is going to be rather long, almost an hour long, so I'm going to split it into 2 pieces to help it fit better on the DVDs. The second piece of this will be on the next DVD. And this is our entire route for our trip for today. Let's get started. First off, we wait in line for the Temple Mount so we can be some of the first ones up there. The old ramp, made out of concrete, was destroyed by an earthquake, and so now we walk up the cattle chute, people call it. While we go up, we see the warning from the rabbinic authorities that say good Jews shouldn't go up here because they don't know where the sacredness is. And we look over at the western wall. Jews and Christians must use this entrance only to go in, but we can exit through others. Once on the Temple Mount, we see these capitals. Some people believe that these are capitals from the old temple courtyards that were here. We'll be gathering over near the Al-Aqsa Mosque in the shade as we talk about what we're about to see. We'll be following this route through the Temple Mount before heading over to the Sisters of Zion Convent. Although it looks flat, we need to understand it's built on a rounded hill with retaining walls to make it a flat structure. And this is what the temple looked like when it was here. First we'll look at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This was built in 709 by Caliph Walid, and in 1099 the Templars used it as their headquarters. King Abdullah of Jordan was assassinated here in 1951. In 1969, there was an arsonist. Inside it and around is where thousands of Muslims pray every Friday at prayer. Now it's a little quieter as we're here, and the courtyards are almost empty. Kathy's going to have her special cart to drive her around in while she's here, so she doesn't have to do a lot of walking. This is the exit to the double gate that goes underneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It's now being used as an underground mosque, but at one time was part of Solomon's stables. Security is shared by the Arabs and also by Israeli security forces. The Al-Qas is a water fountain where they wash their feet and hands before saying their prayers. And now it's time to head up to the Dome of the Rock. This is the oldest Muslim shrine in the world, built in 688. It is not a mosque, but a memorial to the midnight ride of Muhammad. Note it has a circle and not a half moon. You used to be able to walk in by just taking off your shoes, but Christians are not allowed inside anymore. But here's some pictures to show you what it would have looked like. Inside, the important thing is the rock in the middle. This is the highest point of the Temple Mount, And some think that the square hole cut is the same size as the Ark of the Covenant, and this is where the Ark of the Covenant sat. Underneath is the Well of the Soul. Supposedly this stone is where Muhammad came on his horse and it took him to heaven. So this is the third holiest place in Muslim theology. There are many different structures on this platform, not just the Dome of the Rock. For instance, there's the Dome of the Chain. We're not exactly sure what this is. Some think it was a model for the Dome of the Rock. Others think that it was where the treasury was. But it is beautiful in its own right and is a 1/10 replica of the Dome of the Rock. As we walk across the platform, we see many people gathering. Over there is the Dome of the Spirits. The Waqf is the Muslim group that administers the Temple Mount, and they have their police headquarters here. Another place we don't have time to go is the Golden Gate. It's closed up now, but notice the gates are not just holes in the wall, but whole buildings. And this would have been a structure built by Suleiman the Magnificent, and you can see how beautiful it is on the inside. As we walk on across the Temple Mount, we see that they're whitewashing the trees. We're told that this is to keep down insects. And then we head out the northwest corner at the gate of Beni Gehanim. You'll note that this gate has an unusual thing in it called an Eye of the Needle gate. A small gate that can be opened without opening the large gate in order to let a person in. Once out the gate, we climb some steps and we head down the street. We're headed to the Sisters of Zion Convent that have the lithostratus in the basement. This church was built in 1859, and as they dug, they found the Struthian pools and the lithostratus. These stones paved the courtyard at the Antonia fortress. And here's the King's Game. It's a very brutal game. Actually, Romans killed the winner at the end of the game because they always killed their king. They could only play it if a criminal who has been condemned to death, like Jesus. To get an idea of what we're looking at, the Antonia fortress was on the corner of the Temple Mount, and we're looking at the paving on that inner courtyard. Some believe this is where the trial before Pilate was held. There's much controversy as to where Pilate would be. Some thought he was at the Hasmonean Palace, but most think he was at the Herodian Palace that was more luxurious. I think it would have been his soldiers at the Antonia fortress where we are now. Thus, I personally think this is an authentic site. Notice the striations to keep the horses from slipping on the stones. When I first started coming, it looked like this, with no railings. But then the railings have been put up to keep people off of certain areas and to control traffic. While here, we had a worship service.
Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?"
Crown of thorns placed on his head, he knew that he would soon be dead. He said, "Did you forget me, Father, did you?" They nailed him to a wooden cross, soon all the world would fill the walls of Christ the King before his hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. to you. A reed which held his final sip was gently lifted to his lips. He drank his last and gave his soul to glory. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. The soldier who had used his sword to pierce the body of our Lord said, truly this is Jesus Christ our Savior. He looked with fear upon his sword, then turned his face, his Christ and Lord, fell to his knees, crying, Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Took from his head the thorny crown, and wrapped him in a linen gown, and laid him down to rest inside the tomb. The holes in his hands, his feet, and side, now in our hearts we know he died, to save us from ourselves, oh, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. 3 days went by, again they came, to move the stone to bless the slain, with oil and twice anointing, hallelujah. But as they went to move the stone, they saw that they were not alone, but Jesus Christ has risen, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah,
Next door to the Sisters of Zion Convent are 2 special buildings. The first is the Chapel of Flagellation. This is actually Station 1 of the Via Delorosa, although many people don't come here. It remembers the whipping that he took by the soldiers. We're not able to get in because they're having a worship service right now, but if we could have, from previous trips, this is what it would have looked like. And just across the hall from it is the Chapel of Condemnation, Station 2 of the cross. You can see the flooring is the lithostratus continued from the Sisters of Zion Convent. It also has a service going on in it, but this is what it would have looked like if we could have gotten in there. I got in there a few years ago. And now in the alleyway between the two, a group is taking up the cross and heading down the Via Delorosa, or the way of suffering and shame. Most people start at the Ecce Homo Arch, a Behold the Man arch. This is where supposedly Pilate said, Behold the Man. This is part of an arch by Hadrian. Looks like this one's from Jerash, and only you can see this much. Most of it is in the other 2 buildings, and this is part of a chapel at the Sisters of Zion Convent. And now it's time to head out through the old city and follow the way of the cross. Of course, it depends on the starting point as to which way you would follow. We're starting from the Sisters of Zion Convent, and these will be our stations. This route actually dates from only the Crusader time, and an easy way to find the stations is look for this pattern in the pavement as you walk along. As we walk along here comes Kathy in her scooter. She'll have transportation while we walk around, so she'll be able to go with us through the way. And now as you round the corner, we come to Station 3. This is the first time he falls. Some of these stations appear in the Bible and some do not. We know he fell, we just don't know how many times. The Via Delorosa has 3, and this is what it looks like inside the little chapel. One of the interesting things here is they've raised some of the pavement stones from Jesus' day to street level today, and now we're at Station 4 where he meets his mother. There's no record of that in the Bible. And then it's time to head on through the markets to the next station. As we walk along, remember Jesus would have been walking through markets also, with people jostling him and making all sorts of fun of him. Each store sells a different type of items. Children's clothes, women's clothes, spices, candies, you name it. This is where the population of the city come to shop. And then we go around another corner and come to Station 5. This is an authentic site. Simon the Cyrene takes up the cross because Jesus can't carry it anymore. Notice the pattern on the pavement to show you this is one of the Stations of the Cross, and this is what it looks like inside. And then it's time to keep on heading upward along the street. Station 6 is one of those non-biblical sites. Veronica wipes his face and comes away with an image of Jesus on the cloth. And this is where that is remembered. As we go along, we see the little 3-wheel carts that they use for delivering things here. So you can see they're kind of bicycle tires, and there's a tire on the back that you stand on as a brake. They also use small articulated tractors to carry things around inside also. And now we come to Station 7 where he falls again. We don't know exactly how many times he fell. As we continue to walk through the markets, you can see the hustle and bustle that is here as people would be shopping and the noise that is being made by them. Now the group's going to depart from the Via Delorosa and head directly to the Church of the Holy Sepulcher. I'm going to show you 2 sites that we'll miss. Station 8 is a biblical site where he stops and tells the women how tragic it'll be for them. It is literally a hole in the wall that you touch. Site 9 is where he falls again. We're not really sure how many times he fell, but it's marked by this post right here. Now, if we had followed the whole Via Delorosa, we'd have come out on top of the Church of the Holy Sepulcher here where the Ethiopian monastery is. Let's look at it just a little bit. They actually live here on the roof of the Church of the Holy Sepulcher. and this is their chapel. They have a cross-shaped Bible. But we're going to walk through the Christian quarter and go in through the courtyard. And now we come to the gate that allow us to go into the courtyard of the Church of the Holy Sepulcher. There before us is the entrance to one of the holiest places in Christianity. This church can be very confusing, so let's talk about it a few minutes. We're in this courtyard right here, and this is the church, which is obviously inside a city. But isn't it supposed to be outside the city? Well, this is where it was in the time of Jesus. Well, what about this city wall right here? Well, this wall wasn't built until 45 AD, about 10 years after Jesus' death. This is a model of the city in 70 AD, just before it was destroyed. These diagrams are from National Geographic. This is what it looked like in Jesus' day. The city wall and gate, a rock quarry outside, a broken rock that they couldn't quarry, which became Golgotha, and a tomb in the side of the wall. Within the lifetime of eyewitnesses, they started to worship here, building a ritual purification bath for baptisms right outside this area, and we can date the pottery to the 1st century. There's also this painting that says, "O Lord, we have arrived," from before 100 AD. In 135, Hadrian tried to wipe out any Christian or Jewish influence in Jerusalem, so he built a temple to Adonis over the top of the tomb. He essentially put a thumbtack on top of it. When Alina arrived, she took the tomb and cut out around the tomb. And then she leveled the entire mountain around it and built a structure around the tomb itself. And it looks something like this. Then she put a rotunda around it. And you'll notice here that Golgotha, or Calvary, is actually out in an open courtyard and not inside. Her church was about twice as big as the one today. I wish she'd left the tomb alone. The church was destroyed and rebuilt several times, and eventually in 1149 the Crusaders built the current church. They put Golgotha inside and put a platform on top of it, and the church was about half its size. And the area outside is where the Ethiopian monastery is today. The Coptic chapel was added to the back of the tomb at a later date. Now the church is rather confusing, with different groups ruling different areas and different chapels scattered all over it. This will be our route through the church. First we'll walk up some steps and see the crucifixion site. Then we'll walk down some more steps and we'll go by the tomb and over to the back of it, where we'll see some 1st century tombs. Walk around to get out and leave through the door. It's easy to get lost with what you're doing inside such a complicated place. As we enter the door, we'll take the steps that are right and go up onto the platform built on top of the hill of Calvary. It's up there. Here we'll find 2 small chapels. They're empty now, but they'll be full when we get here. One is the Station 10. This is where they take his clothes off. And then right there at the same place is where they remember Station 11, nailing him to the cross. We'll be standing in these areas waiting to get to the place where he was crucified. The chapel to the left is Station 12, where the cross was raised. We're in line to reach through a hole and touch the stones of Calvary. Here you can look underneath that altar and see the little plate there. And in the middle of it is a hole that you can reach through and touch the stone. Stones can also be seen through the glass on each side, and if we went down to the Chapel of Adam below, you can see the stones there. Station 13 is a non-biblical site where he's taken down from the cross and laid on a stone to be anointed, the stone of unction here. Now as we walk over to the tomb, we come by the place where the women stood, supposedly, and there's a little marker here to remind us of that. Second only to Calvary in importance would be the tomb itself. Now when I first started coming here, it was held up by metal because it was falling apart and really dingy and dirty. But in December of 2019, they repaired it and cleaned it, and now they can remove the scaffolding, and it's truly beautiful to look at. It sits in a rotunda with an opening at the top with glass over it so the sun can shine down upon it. There's a huge line to try and get into it, so we're not going to be able to. But I've been into it before, and so let's take a look inside. First we would come to the Chapel of the Angel, and then behind that is the tomb itself. In the Chapel of the Angel, this is supposedly where the angels were when the women saw them. And inside the box is supposed to be a piece of the original Rolling Stone. On in the back is the place where his body would have been laid, on a bench. Most people thought that the entire tomb was destroyed in 1009 and all we had was marble standing here. But when they repaired it, cleaned it in 2019, they made an amazing discovery. These are National Geographic pictures. They found that part of the bedrock was still there, part of the original tomb. They've covered it back up with the marble now. Behind it is the Coptic chapel, a small chapel that you can go and worship in the back if you can't get in the front. In the middle of the church is the Greek Orthodox Catholicon. Now remember, just because this is an authentic site where Jesus was crucified, died, and was resurrected, doesn't mean everything in it is authentic. The tradition is that this is where God started creating the world. I really don't buy that. Next we go to the Syrian chapel in the back behind the tomb. This is an authentic site where we're going to look at a Kokim tomb. This is definitely a 1st century tomb, and as we go in, we will see channels that have been cut back into the rock where bodies would have been laid. Once they have rotted and the bones are collected, they're put in ossuaries. This is the way they built tombs in the 1st century. This is a rich person's tomb, the tomb of Queen Elena of Aberdeen's. You can notice the big chambers and all the little Kokims all over everywhere, for she had a very large family and would many be buried at one time. Once they rotted, they would put them in ossuaries and stick them in one of the rooms. This is the typical way a 1st century tomb was built. Here you can see the Rolling Stone, a very small opening that you crawl through, and notice the rock to keep it from falling over when it's over the area. These are the Kokims with the bench there you'd lay the body on and prepare for it, and this is what the inside of a Kokim would look like. Now we're going to walk around the Catholicon and look at a few places. The prison of Christ, the chapel to remember that he was in prison, the chapel of St. Longus, the chapel of the division of the raiment, supposedly where they gambled for his clothes. Down here also is the chapel of Adam. Supposedly Adam's skull is buried here. That's why it was called Skull Hill. Again, a probably highly traditional thing. And then you can go down into the basement through these steps and see the chapel of St. Helena. She's the one who built the church, the original church that was here. Further down you come to the chapel of the finding of the cross. Supposedly she found the original cross 300 years later. I don't think so. And then Deborah shows us how to bargain with the street vendor. Others are shopping in some of the local stores to buy the last-minute items that they haven't been able to buy yet. We have been in the Christian quarter since we've come to the Church of the Holy Sepulcher, in an area called the Stand or Fountain, and it has a beautiful fountain in this area. And now it's time to walk up to the Jaffa Gate. We'll be following King David Street. It runs between the Jewish quarter and the Christian quarter. Kathy's going to go on ahead in her chariot and meet us at the Jaffa Gate. This here in front of us is the Stand. It's the fountain that marks the center of the Christian quarter. As we walk on up the street, we see the many different stores here and the items that they're selling. 5 shekels, that'd be about $1.25. 3 shekels, that's 75 cents. And then we're coming out into the plaza inside the Jaffa Gate. It's called the Jaffa Gate because it's the gate that you would leave if you were heading towards Jaffa. And now we're going to head out the Jaffa Gate and head to our bus. As we leave through the Jaffa Gate, note the small door in the gate. It's called an eye of a needle gate. And you would open it and let one person in, or a camel could walk in without its package. But you wouldn't have to open the big gates and maybe be attacked. And now we're outside and walking along the western wall of the old city. Soon we'll be on our bus and headed to Jericho. We'll put that on the next DVD.